Hey, legal besties, and welcome to Ladies in Law. I'm Michaela Dixon, and today we have an incredible guest, one of my close friends. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Hey, Michaela. Thanks for having me. I'm Whitney Betts. I'm co-founder and president of Betts Law Group down here in San Diego.
I am so excited for this episode. I wanted to have you on the podcast for so long just because I feel like every conversation we have, I leave it feeling just fuller. And so I can't wait to just pick your brain and get to know you more in this kind of setting. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of explaining what your relationship and journey through the law has been to today.
That's a big question.
I know.
Um,
Where to start?
relationship to the law, it's
Yeah.
foundational. It's everything. It's nothing. Um, really, the law is everything that we stand on, and yet it's nothing but what you make of it in some situations. So, in my life, I've viewed it in different ways. From college, I got into policy debate, where in my senior year of college, we were debating actually what would happen if you overturned four different Supreme Court decisions and the de facto implications and all of this across the country and what would happen. And so you looked at it from the pro and from the side of which way would you want it and what all would undo or what would do if the court had ruled differently. And before that last year of my college, I never even thought about going to law school.
Oh my
Not in the
gosh.
back of my mind, not anywhere. All of a sudden, I'm debating Supreme Court cases, looking into de facto implications. And I'm like, this is amazing. Who knew that one decision that seven people went into could make such an impact across thousands and thousands of lives? And it was the first time that I really thought, wow, there's really something here. I mean, you grow up in America, you know the construct of the law, you follow the laws and the rules, but you never think about what it does. And it was the first concept, even though I don't think at that time I would call it the ripple effect, but that I now very much believe in everything that we do. Fast forward 20 years later, every decision that I make has a ripple effect. And I'm very aware of that. From the micro decisions of how I manage my team to the big fights that we take on in cases to the cases that we take. I mean, think about that. When you decide to take a case and help somebody versus I can't help you with that, even that decision has implications across it.
Mm.
So that is my like real big how I relate to the law. In a micro answer, went to college, debated, law school, in and out of some jobs that I would call great and some jobs that I would call terrible. And along the way to make our own path. And now we're in charge of it. And it's just everything.
Wow. I love the way that you look at that too, because I think when we make decisions, like we do ourselves a disservice if we don't think about the weight of that decision and how that impacts not only us but other people. And so I think if you kind of always operate on that mindset of like, okay, what does this decision do? And also what do the words that I'm using when conveying this decision, how does that make others feel around me? And I feel like that's something too that like you keep to your core, especially in the types of cases that you work on, because I do think a lot of the types of cases you're working on are more of like the emotional and psychological harm versus physical. So can you kind of dive into the types of cases you take and how that relates?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually what our firm's purpose and ethos is to focus on cases that have what we call invisible injuries and trauma in a way that you can't see. So we have a whole department that does workers' compensation claims for professional athletes. And you're like, okay, that's injuries, but it's also not. It's people that have given their whole lives to a career that sometimes pans out, sometimes doesn't, and they're left busted, torn, sore, worn out and exhausted physically, emotionally, mentally from all of it. And
Mm-hmm.
you might look at them and think they had a great career for a couple years. What's it to them? And you can't see on the day to day what they're dealing with and they're struggling with. Conversely, on the other hand, my main team focuses on sexual assault, sexual harassment, discrimination, all of these things that leave incredibly painful scars internally, but you also can't see. And we know that one moment can change the course of a person's life forever. We know this. And yet it's so easy to judge and just be like, oh, well, they look like they're okay. They're getting by okay. Oh, so what that happened to her? She looks like she was able to pull it together and still get a job over here. It didn't matter. But everything that happens to you in your life matters. And you shouldn't have to stand on a soapbox to tell somebody, you can't do that to me. It's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's such an interesting juxtaposition of children when you're like, hey, treat others how you want to be treated. It's not okay. I understand. And when you get into adulthood, people are like, oh, suck it up, buttercup, get over it. But at what point did we decide that you can treat somebody badly or that you can hurt them and not care about them? The law actually stands the other way and says, no, you can't. And it's our honor to be able to stand up with people when they say, no, you can't. And that wasn't okay. We teach our children accountability and responsibility. And I believe the same things should carry through across your whole life.
Absolutely. I literally just felt like snapping while you were talking. I was like, yes. And I think so often too, like with survivors, we are as a society so often judging the survivor and how they react and how they heal through the journey of what they've endured and not looking at the actual perpetrator who did it. Like, why
Exactly.
are we here criticizing this when we should be
Exactly.
condemning this? Like, I don't,
That's
my mind literally cannot comprehend why it is that way.
so that's one of the things that I feel like and I don't want to adopt the words like preachy because I shouldn't be preaching on this. Everybody should just understand this. But
Yes.
our culture, at least American modern culture, has adopted
Mhm.
what we call the rape culture. And nobody likes that word. Nobody likes that term. Everybody cringes, but it's the truth. It is
Yeah.
why we say, why were you on the floor after having these amount of drinks instead of, excuse me, at what point did you think it was okay to look at a vulnerable, passed out person, unzip your pants, and go do that? It's
Yeah.
absolutely not. But we're primed to look one way instead of the other. And so we view it as part of our job to help the person that is being viewed at this way, but also redirect the conversation, educate and lift up. And it can come from non traditional, non expected trauma responses. It's
Mhm.
so easy to judge a situation you haven't lived and say, well, I would have done it this way, I would have done that way, or I would have ran out of the room. What was she thinking? All of these sorts of things are so easy to judge from the outside. But what we need to do is shift the conversation into understanding non traditional or non expected responses. And it's funny because the more you get educated in this field and learn about trauma and trauma responses, the most non traditional responses are truly the trauma responses.
Yes.
It's so it's just this uphill battle of always teaching, always educating. I had a recent call in a case that the opposing counsel called me and was like, this just sounds like a threesome that she regrets. I'm
Shut
like,
up.
no, that's a first phone call with a defense attorney on a rape case. I don't think so. Sorry, excuse
Oh,
my
that
language.
makes me
But,
sweat.
and that is
Oh, I
still what
hate that.
happens. This is still the
Yeah,
way that these things are approached. It's easier because we've also learned that when you don't have an excuse for your behavior, the easiest thing to do is attack and blame and shame.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that something that like I'm so grateful that like you are in this space is like I know just like you utilize that trauma informed approach. And so much of that is just validating what the person in front of you has experienced. And I think that like it is easy isn't the right word, but it is so easy to think that like you know how you would react in a situation until you are
Mhm.
in that situation. And I feel like, I mean, especially like survivors have endured this and then also they're facing judgment or internalized words that they've heard others say around them. And so it's almost like part of like your advocacy is just like affirming like it is okay and you did not deserve this. And that
Yeah.
can be sometimes just the most transformative thing for someone to hear, just like validated. Because I think when survivors also feel this like guilt or almost just disappointment in themselves for why didn't I do X, why did the person do that in the first place? Like that shouldn't
Yeah.
have happened. Like you shouldn't be in the position of having to, what could I have done to change this?
Well, and there's so much, not just guilt, but in situations where there's grooming and manipulation, often when it gets brought to us by a family member or a friend, the person is still struggling from these boundaries being crossed, from the transference in a situation where it was their therapist or with a leader in a school setting or somebody who they trusted. And
Absolutely.
they almost can't step back and see. No, that is not okay. No, that was not healthy. No, that was not allowed. They shouldn't have done that to you, especially
Mhm.
when somebody is coming to their own in young adulthood and they're trying to make sense of their own actions and think, well, I did that or that happened and I didn't scream or yell or I didn't say anything for months because I didn't know what to say and I thought I would be in trouble. When it's somebody took advantage of somebody incredibly vulnerable in their care, there to get help from them.
Hmm.
And then they're left with these mental ramifications, not just of what happened, but how to make sense of it. It can turn the world upside down.
Absolutely. Was it ever a hard decision for you to take these kinds of cases?
I have no. Everyone goes like, "Oh, you're doing these cases. Oh, I can't handle that. Ugh."
Mhm.
And you know what I can't handle? Candidly, seeing another dead body from a trucking case. Do you know
Yeah.
how many of those I saw? I can't. I just can't. I couldn't take any more depositions where family members are sobbing because of someone died and there was nothing I could do. And maybe that
Mhm.
is the core of this, is that at least with an active survivor or a client who's going through something and they're actively dealing with these injuries and harm, I can help. Maybe it was the inability to help with that, but it
Mhm.
just feels also like there's a gap in society. And as much as it's post Me Too and people know about this, there's still happening, still not enough awareness, still enough that we feel like we're swimming upstream when we try to educate and explain
Mhm.
and be able to tell people about these cases to where it just feels right to do it.
Yeah.
I guess I've long away from the discomfort of it. And the more that we give credence to it being an uncomfortable topic, the more we put shame and try to put it back away from
Mhm.
being addressed. I mean, when we have hearings on Capitol Hill about Epstein and the survivors going on, at the same time as people tell me, oh, well, post Me Too, everybody has a case now. These discords still need to be reconciled.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you are doing the work that you are doing, because I think that it is necessary, and I think that your heart is in such a like healing place. You know, like I think it is a hard chapter to navigate as a survivor, but then when you have an advocate that hears you and wants to help you through your journey, like your healing process, that's everything. You know, to just be heard and seen and advocated for.
Exactly. And the law allows it. The law allows it in criminal, which people don't understand. You have a
Mhm.
right to a victim advocate. The courts will appoint one for you, or use your own attorney, or use your mom. You don't have to go through this alone. And in civil, I don't love civil, but I love civil in that when you're in the criminal justice system, you are a necessary witness to a crime with a case against a perpetrator.
Mhm.
And that's it. You're a witness. The DA does not actually have to do what you want. You do not get final say, and you get notifications, but you don't always get consulted the way that you wish you would, because it
Yeah.
actually stops being your case. This thing on TV that we see of like, I want to press charges, that's actually not up to you. That's up
Yeah.
to the district attorney. And sometimes it can be a oh, massive letdown when the charges don't come across the way that you thought. But do
Mhm.
you know what we have access to? The other thing that our founding fathers made, the civil justice system. Hit it where it hurts in their pocketbooks. And you know
Mhm.
who gets to decide how that case goes, the outcome and what you do with it? You do.
You.
And that's why think I really love the lane that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah, that I mean, that's so much of what they have experienced is this loss of control and this loss of power. And so that's so empowering too, where it's like, look, you get to use your voice, you get to tell your story, you get to be heard, and you get to take that back.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
I love that part. And I think something too that I want us to talk about is the way that we are able to show up when we also pour into ourselves, because I think that we are better advocates when we also focus on like being in the best place we can possibly be to advocate for others. And so when dealing with cases that do have a lot of emotional weight to it, how do you kind of practice boundary setting in your life and making sure that you're showing up as your fullest self?
Within the practice, I try to reinforce boundaries in the team, setting those up, realizing that as close to our clients as we get, we are not their therapist, nor is there a need to trauma bond and maybe explain anything that's happened to you to them to help support them. You have to keep those walls up. It's really important. And for my own personal sense of self, I am a beach kid. I've grown up, I've always lived by a beach. It's just what centers and grounds me. I live 5-10 minutes away from PB here in San Diego. And I like to go for like 2 to 4 mile walks. Sometimes it's on the boardwalk, sometimes it's feet in the sand on the water. And if I'm really struggling or having a hard time, there's this loving kindness mantra because I'm also very much into yoga and a practitioner that's like, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be free from suffering, may I find
Mm.
peace. And it's just very grounding. And what I will do is, as I'm doing it in my head, I'm not saying it out loud, but as I'm going through my whole walk, I literally do that for anybody I can think of. I start with my families, I'll go through my team, I'll go through my friends. And the practice slows you down because you name the person. So it's like, may my
Mm,
husband be happy. May my husband be healthy. May he be free from suffering and may he find peace. And just like doing that over and over and over, it's just like you feel like you're building out this positive energy that you're sending back out into the sphere. And you're also making room for your heart for everything that can be heavy to kind of find some centering. It's just been one of the mantras I've always really loved. And I think it's great because even within it, it talks about suffering. And in modern society and in karma and in yoga philosophy, suffering is desire or aversion. And so much of
mm,
our lives is spent hoping for something, wanting something, feeling like you need to buy something to make yourself complete, versus aversion, which is like, oh, even the anxiety of, I hope that doesn't go badly. Anytime that you're finding yourself a way out of that centered moment, it's usually from desire or aversion. And that is the core of suffering in that. I kind of went on a tangent about yoga philosophy right there, but it really
I love
helps
it.
me with my own personal boundaries and staying aware of what I'm doing in this exact moment and where I am.
Yes, I think that that's
Uh,
so important because I think, like, while we are attorneys and that is our profession, we are also human beings. And I
Yes.
think when we lean into being a human being, that's so important. Well, also, like, not trauma bonding, because I think that that is huge too,
Hmm.
because it's hard to not lean all the way in, because it's like you're allowed to be human and also you're their advocate. But then,
Yeah.
we're allowed to be human beings and like doing yoga and having those things that ground you is huge. I mean, even just hearing you say that, I felt just like this calm wash over me where I was kind of like, ooh, I like that. I was like, oh, I wanted to write that down because I love it. But like having something that you can fall back on. Like I have my lizard moments is what I call them. I will just go sit outside and just like be in the sun for a little bit if I need to just like regroup, and I have like
Yeah.
a playlist I put on and I will just like sit there for a second. But like I love that. Like knowing what your thing is and doing that kind of trial and error where you can find it. And when it speaks to you and gives you that sense of just calm and to go back to it, I think is huge.
Yeah. I really love it because it helps quiet your mind. And when I do it and I find myself I'm thinking about other things, just go back until really you've got nothing left and it takes you out. I love the lizard moment. I love that thought. There's nothing better than laying out there and just feeling like you're absorbing all of
Yes,
that
yes.
warmth
Just
and
the
heat and
when you're
energy.
just like sitting at a desk for so long, it's just kind of like I need to, touch grass. Like I just need to just like go outside for a second. So I relate to having that thing that you just like you cling to and that you can create those moments. And something that I think I love that you talk about is kind of like women reclaiming their autonomy while also, building our kind of like leadership and power in that kind of in like environment and making sure that you are like growing towards that. Can you talk about kind of like what that means to you and how women in this profession can kind of lean into that more?
Well, so absolutely. And I saw this thing in a book I was reading the other day that says people often teach what they needed to hear. And I'm realizing maybe that
Mm,
was me. Maybe that's why I talk about autonomy so much right now in this phase of my adulthood, in this phase of being an entrepreneur and a business owner, a firm leader, a women's leader, because maybe the 20-year-old me didn't quite have that enough. Maybe I didn't stop and think about everything that I was doing and realize what true power is,
mm,
not what you see at the top of a mountain of somebody in control of a bunch of stuff, but what does power look like to you? And usually that comes from cutting all of the strings of control that allows other people to manipulate and have input on your life. And when you actually enforce your own ability to stand on your own 2 feet, make decisions for yourself, and be accountable, not to anybody else, but truly to yourself first, what's going to flow from that is so powerful and so enigmatic. And conversely, not everybody's going to like it. To be truly autonomous, to be in control of your own, is often to enforce boundaries. And boundaries are also, people go, oh, boundaries are so great. But do you know what boundaries look like to somebody who's on the receiving end of somebody enforcing a boundary? It can look selfish and rude,
mm,
but sometimes we have to protect ourselves first. And that's what enforcing a boundary is. It's saying, if you do this, I will not engage. I will not do that. And then you have to stand by it. You
mm,
have to actually do it. And that's the same thing with building autonomy and your leadership potential and how you're living your life, is to be okay with the fact that not everybody else is going to like what you do all the time, and to have to make the best decisions in the furtherance of what you believe is truly the best ideals, way of living life, how you're running everything that you do and being comfortable with it. And owning the core of that is kind of standing in your own autonomy and power.
Hmm. Do you think that that's something that kind of has like evolved over time for you, or is that something that you kind of sit down and you're like, okay, these are the things that are my core pillars. I need to make sure that I'm always acting in alignment with them, or kind of like a mixture of both?
I think it took me some years to identify the misalignment, if you would. And then
Mm-hmm.
the more I made step after step after step that got me into the right position and it felt more in line and everything felt brighter, more open, available. I mean, I left a decade plus long career in defense as a partner at a big firm, and I've never felt better. And I wouldn't have even thought 10 years ago that this was a possibility. I don't think I could have sat down. Maybe I could have, but I sure didn't sit
Yeah.
down. And if you would have done this with me 5, 10 years ago and said, what do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? I wouldn't have said, at the head of this beautiful 5,000 plus square foot law firm that we just moved into with this whole team, posting jobs, having this happening, speaking at different conferences, traveling, but beyond that, making an impact in my clients' lives. All of these different facets that I now see just like springing and flowing out, I don't think I could have even envisioned for myself. I wish maybe I would have. I wish maybe somebody would have sat me down and allowed me that space
Mm.
instead of me feeling like I had to tear away each barrier to get there. But I am sure happy I found this space for me. And I want others to find their same space. There's so much for everyone. There is no closing the door behind us, there is just pulling everybody up.
I don't know why that made me emotional. I feel like that was really beautiful. Like I just think that it's like that's so beautiful. Like I love that for you. Like I love where you are at today, and just like I feel like I can like feel like you just deserve it. Like it's just really
It's like, you
really
don't even know
pretty.
my whole plight, Michaela, but I appreciate that. But
I think like the earnestness in what you're saying just like I don't know, it just feels palpable. So just thank you, and I'm proud of you.
thank you. I'm proud of you
You
too.
thank you.
And
I
it's
think
so funny when I get these responses because I'm not trying to make you cry. I think I've just finally reached the comfort in talking about discomfort and
yeah,
talking about the ugly and the uncomfortable and the things that happen. And the more you shed light on things, the easier it is to navigate it. And you find out you're
absolutely.
not alone. You find more and more people like this, these little connected moments where you go
Yes.
like, wow, I want to feel that
Yes.
way. I want to be around that. I want more of that for me too. And that's also the concept of like Santoja and contentness, just to be content in your moment. And
Mm.
trust me, I'm ambitious as hell and we're building and I want more and I want to do more. But I think that's also because I'm not satisfied because for the first time I can see how much I can do. And
Oh,
I don't want to shut that. I want to see where else I can go and what we can do, who we
yeah.
can help.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think so much riddled in what you're saying too is that like success gets to be how you define it for yourself.
Yes,
And that is like
absolutely.
transformative because I think as a society, the loudest voices are the ones that kind of are talking about what they think success is. And it's hard not to measure yourself against that until you take a step back and you're like, am I working towards that because I actually want that for myself? And so
Yeah.
defining what success means to you is huge.
Right. And you can be successful. And I think I've talked about this before, like on paper. I was a partner at a big law firm. We had a house, kids in private school, things that on you look at my resume and you're like, that is a successful woman. She's got the marriage, she's got the kids, she's got the house, she's
Mm.
got a partner. And you can feel dead inside and not be happy and not be, not like you're ashamed of what you're doing, but there's a lack of pride. There's a
Yeah.
lack of joy. There's a lack of that light bleeding out of you. You can be quite good at what you do and on paper look really good. But when that spark is slowly dying and those embers are fading, it just doesn't feel good. Your life
Yeah.
just feels like a drudge. And so I think there's a concept that we need to fight in talking about women and power and autonomy of not just we talk about burnout, but I don't always think it's burnout. I think it is a lack of alignment. I think it is a lack of
Mm.
autonomy. I think you can feel burnt out and over it because if your core doesn't align with what you're doing and you're not finding true joy, yeah, it's going to feel tedious. I work so much. I mean, I've always been a hard worker, so I don't know if it's so much harder, but I work really hard to build our business right now. And some days I go, I created this monster. Why did we do this? Like, we could have just made some money and gone and laid on a beach and been good. Like, we could take some winnings from cases and just peace out. But instead, we're pouring everything that we do back into this. And I think it's because I love it, because there's just true joy here. And I'm finding strengths that I didn't know I had and being a boss and a leader and standing on my own and being willing to go stand in front of crowds and speak to people and speak openly. And like you said,
Yeah.
earnestly, I pour my heart out and I've got no more filters, no more shields. I'm not trying to present myself a certain way. And the more that you are just the core of who you are, the easier that is.
Mm, yeah. And I
Right.
think that there's so much like beauty and power in that vulnerability of just being. And I think that that helps so many people know and feel empowered to also lean into what they're feeling and how they're showing up and not looking at that as this, liability, but a strength. I think being
Yeah.
humans with emotional intelligence and leaning into how deeply we care can be such a strength.
Right. It
Yes.
absolutely is. It
And
just
so
is.
just thank you for the way that you show up and the way that you advocate and for the way that I genuinely just like really enjoy talking to you. Like I just feel just like so like just validated and just full. And I think that, in trying to curate such an authentic network of people that you just can really resonate with and
Mhm.
want to emulate and be and grow beside is just such a privilege. So thank you for being here.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me. I mean, the more we have these dialogues and understand the opportunities that are out there, the more maybe somebody else decides to step their foot in and see where they can go and what they can do. I mean, there's just some doors that aren't necessarily close to you, but you just didn't even know existed. And we
Mm.
need to shine light on those.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. I just feel like I just
So
capitalize want to put yes. Like just like
easy.
yeah,
Core
right.
brand moment. Yes.
Yes.
Just yes.
Truly. Truly. Okay, I have one
So,
final question for you.
yes, ma'am.
So, if you could give younger you one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
I don't know if the words are slowed down, but
Mm.
they're almost okay. TV and movies, right? There's always that moment where it like freezes and the character walks around and everybody else is not moving, right?
Hmm.
Conceptually, I think of it as that. Allow yourself a day, a week, just some time that you actually step away from
Hmm.
whatever your little responsibilities are, whatever your workload is, whatever bills you have to pay, and allow yourself to float 10,000 feet up and look down and go, am I happy? Is
Hmm.
this right? Did I happen to get on a steam train going to here and find myself not actually okay with where I ended up? So many decisions in life just roll into the next one and the next one. And before you know it, you've created this area of your world that maybe it's not really what you wanted. And instead of feeling stuck in it, and the root of so many people being unhappy is just feeling stuck and out of control. And it doesn't mean that things are going to change overnight. But I really wish that maybe I would have stopped and done this analysis earlier. Maybe this firm would have already been existing for the last 10 years. I don't know. And maybe it wouldn't have. Maybe I would have gone somewhere entirely different with my career. But I do think everybody should, and I wish that I would have just taken that ability to float up and really see if where I was going was in alignment with who I thought I wanted to be,
Hmm.
and not just at a surface level, really and truly taking those moments.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do with how fast our world moves and how much information is flowing at us nonstop and all of the responsibilities that tack on in the day to day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, yeah, I could have used that too. But it's just
Right?
kind of like, it's almost like you don't feel like you have time to prioritize it. Okay, I'll get there.
Yep.
I'll get there. You just keep going and you almost just feel like this passive character with all these things happening around you. But the second you kind of switch that to like, no, like I am an active participant in my life and I want to sit in it and like make sure that I feel in alignment and just like
Yeah.
creating that time and that space.
Yeah. The intentionality of our
Mm.
lives now. And I mean, it's such a interesting moment when you go from working for someone to curating your own life experience, even as much as like, what do you want your website copy to say? what are you actually sitting down when someone says, "What about you?" And I'm like, "Oh,
Mm,
I have to write a bio. I have to tell you who I am. I have, before you have your marketing teams, before you have all of that doing it for you, and you're
mm-hmm.
sitting there with a blank paper saying, who am I and what do I want?" This was the first time in our lives that we got to sit down and do that intentionally, thoughtfully, and just drive the boat exactly where you want it to go. I mean, you can be driving, but if you don't, I think there's a Yogi Berra quote that I'm going to terribly misquote right now of like, if you are going somewhere, but you don't have an angle where you're going to get somewhere, but not where
Mm,
you want it. And that's like a bastardization of whatever that actual quote is. But it's very
I
much
liked
like
it.
life will just keep rolling. But unless you have a plan of where you're going, you're going to end up somewhere. But is it where
Hmm.
you want? I don't
Right,
know,
right.
you know?
I love that. Even if that's not how the quote goes, I
I'm
liked it.
gonna have to look it
I
up after this. I feel terrible for ruining as badly as I did.
it made sense to my brain and I liked it. No,
Right?
yes, yes, because it's true. Like you're moving. It's just what are you moving towards? And what do you
Yeah.
want to be moving towards? And do those exist together or are we going different paths? And so it's just taking that level of intentionality and remembering that like you do have the power to choose. It might not be an overnight thing. You know, there might need to be many decisions to get to that end result, but it's knowing
Mhm.
that like you are moving towards it.
Yeah, and I don't think there's enough presence in our lives, and maybe with the next generation, there will be or there is already developing, but the thought of taking that time to actually curate the life you want before you just wake in a life you
Mm-hmm.
have,
Mm-hmm.
like, should
Mm-hmm.
be done younger,
Yeah.
earlier, thoughtfully.
Yeah. Yeah, and not feeling like you have to be married to it because it can evolve and you can change and you can grow, but it's making sure that you take the time to kind of just figure out who you are and what you want and what that looks like or could
Right?
look
And
like.
also, if you're hearing this and you're like, "Oh, I'm in my late 30s, I'm in my 40s, and I haven't done that yet," do not fret. Still do it. Still
Mm-hmm.
align yourself. When we made this huge career shift, I repeatedly told myself one of my heroes is RBG, and she didn't even go into the appellate work and start working on these high level cases until she was 37 or 38. You don't hear about her earlier years, you hear about all of the work that she did.
Mm.
So you have to realize like we can have all of these different phases of our lives that can do so many different things. So wherever you are, it is the right time.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
think that's just so amazing to hear too. Like just truly. And I think like just thank you for the wealth of knowledge that you are and for the way that you show up in this space. And if anyone wants to find you, where can they find you?
Contact me. What is my Instagram handle? At whitneybetts.esq. We're at Betts Law Group PC, bettslawgroup.com. Um, And Whitney at betslawgroup.com is my direct email. Shoot me an email. I'll get in contact, get in touch. I'm trying to go out there and speak at more things, be it events. And if there's something that you feel you connected with, sure love to hear it. I love the more and more we expand this community and meet each other. It's been so fulfilling. So
Yeah.
thank you again, Michaela. And thank you for creating this space. These conversations are important. I'm glad you're leading them.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you a whole heck of a lot. And thank you all for listening. Until next time. Bye.